Greetings, brethren. Habsburger Donkey here again, and I thought I'd join in the Rulebook Pile of Shame video series that, oh god, sorry, I forgot the channel name. I saw it on British Legion's channel, and he linked to the original channel. Justin something? I'm sorry, I forgot. I will link it in the video description. But I thought it was a great idea to just show off rule books that I've bought over the years that I haven't really done anything with. There aren't that many because ones that I have bought that I then decided I'm never going to do anything with these, I already sold again. So these are really only the ones that I've bought and that I do actually plan on doing something with at some point. There is also a big collection over there on the wall, but I didn't feel like getting all of that down because it's a lot of books, and it's basically all of the books from the second edition of War Machine and Hordes. So all of the Mark II War Machine and Hordes books I have in hardcover version, mostly because I really loved that game. That was one of my favorite war games for a while. I've kind of grown out of it. I'm just not particularly fond of competitive wargaming anymore. It's too much for me. I don't really have time or the interest to learn all of the different combinations and to stay up to date with the meta. I kind of just want to buy figures that I really like, paint them, and then put them on the table and have cool looking spectacle games. That's another thing. I don't generally like gamey games anymore. I just prefer spectacle. So, for example, I really like Hail Caesar, even though it is a kind of wonky game at times, but I much prefer it to something like DBA or ADLG. I don't like those games a lot in particular because they're very much games first, and sure, they're also historical and all that, but they don't really care about spectacle. Everything is very much gamified. So you have small stands of figures, and you don't have particularly big armies, and you can play it on a tiny board with very sparse terrain, and each time one of your stands attacks an enemy stand, it's one die, and I just find that very boring, I must say. So I know there are a lot of fans of DBA and ADLG and such, but I'm not one of them. All right, let's get to the books before this video gets too long. So first off, we have Of Gods and Mortals from the Osprey Blue Book series. This is a game I definitely want to handle at some point. I already have 2 god figures. I have a figure of Thor and a figure that is probably just going to be Luchlamfota, probably, for the Celts. And the reason I found these cool 54mm scale statues. I think they're made somewhere in Russia, and then they cast them and they varnish them really heavily and to make them look statuesque. They're very cheap, so I got a few of those, and I wanted to use them as god figures. So this is one that I definitely want to handle at some point. I really like the idea of having a god per army, and then some mythical beings. You know, in the case of the Norse, for example, you'll have a Valkyrie or Fenris or some Draugr, and then have some regular Vikings to go with it. So very cool, really love this. Haven't played it yet, haven't made armies for it yet, but I will. Then next we have The Pikeman's Lament, also from the Osprey Blue Book series, and this is a sort of skirmish level game for 30 Years' War and English Civil War. Skirmish, a large skirmish, so you'll have probably between 30 and 60 miniatures with this. I like the idea of it. I originally got it because I already had planned to make a 30 Years' War project because I love the Renaissance. It's my favorite period. But I also wanted to do some English Civil War or some Italian Wars, and I got this. I wanted to do Italian Wars. doesn't really cover Italian wars, so I don't know. But I still definitely want to do something with this at some point. Then I also have Sword Point from Gripping Beast. It's their mass battle system, and it is what Hail Caesar is to War Master, as in Hail Caesar is sort of based on War Master. This is sort of based on Warhammer Historical, but kind of divorced from a lot of the sort of, like, you don't have to single base miniatures in Sword Point. I really like the look of Sword Point. I don't know if I'll like it more than Hail Caesar, but I wanted to give this a try at some point. I still haven't found anyone to play it with, but if I ever do, I have the army books for the classical period and for the Dark Age period, which I prefer in general to classical period. But I do have a Carthaginian army that I could play this with. So maybe at some point I'll find someone to play Sword Point with. Definitely is on the agenda. Then next comes Land of the Free, also from Osprey, not the Blue Book series, their actual Wargame series. And this is something I really, really want to play at some point. The American Revolution and in general sort of the late 18th century is my second favorite period. Also, as you can see, the flag behind me comes from the American Revolution. Really love that period. Has Hessians fighting as well, which is, again, the place I originate from. And I've already read some of Land of the Free, and it's a really cool system. I really enjoy the way this looks. I think it's just a very well flowing system. At least that's what it reads like. I really adore this. I'm definitely gonna have to at some point sit down, read all of the rules, and then make up some test forces and play a game with someone, because it looks really fun. It looks like a really, really good system. And you can also play this with the French and Indian Wars and the War of 1812. And honestly, I think from the way the game works, I don't think it would be too much work to adopt this for the American Civil War as well. So very adaptive system. It's and the cool thing about it as well is you can play it as a mass battle game, but because it is based on elements, so a unit consists of 3 to 7 elements, you could technically also play this as a skirmish game and just have 5 individual guys as your unit, or 7 individual guys as your larger unit. And I don't know, it looks like a really good game, and I really want to give this a try. And then lastly, we have the big box, and this is Demon World. And Demon World is probably something most of you have not heard of before. It is a German war game from the 90s. It came out, I want to say, in 1994, and it was in production till 2005, 2006, something like that. And it is a 15mm fantasy game, and you can see it plays on a hex grid. So it's much in the tradition of BattleTech, in that you have a hex grid on the field, and the units are arranged on their hex bases into units, and then you fight big, awesome fantasy battles with this. The reason I really wanted to get into this again, a few years back I started collecting a massive Demon World collection again, is because I started playing in the 90s and with Games Workshop stuff, and at one point I went to the local game store and I saw these Demon World figures, and I loved them. I loved them so much. They look really cool. You get a big box full of 40 figures, 40 15mm figures, and I was really into it, but I could never find anyone to play it with. Never. My whole adolescent wargamer life, I never played a game of Demon World. And I was always really upset about it. I always wanted to get into it with someone, but never happened. So I had a few figures growing up, but never used them. And now that I don't really play that much anymore anyway, at least not nearly as much as I did when I was a teenager, I just decided, screw it, I want to collect them anyway. So that's going to be a project at some point, definitely, because I really, really love it. And I'll be sure to show you any progress that I make on it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All the other books that I have had. I also have a rather large collection of old school Warhammer Fantasy Battle books. But I don't really see that as a pile of shame because I played that my whole adolescent life. I've played so much Warhammer that I don't find that to be shameful to have all those books. I really like those books. I like the artwork in them and everything. So I have them. They're a collection. And I'm sure at some point I'll play Warhammer again as well. Alright, thank you for watching. That's my book pile of shame. And let's see yours next. Alright, take care, folks.